So far, we've gone through two steps in winning the impromptu. The first being how do we train our memory to respond effectively to any subject matter, and then the second being how do we take that information and transform it into a clear, cohesive presentation. Today, we're going to look at the articulation step. How do we deliver our presentation effectively upon the stage? And to do this, we're going to look at three stages of delivering our presentation. The moments before we get up onto the stage, the pre-presentation, so the moment before we begin, and then during our presentation, our actual delivery itself. So the first part of this comes down to your mental game. You've taken the time to put together your information. You've now transformed that information into a cohesive presentation, and you only have a few moments left before you actually have to begin. The temptation here is always to run through as much of that information as you can, to do as much of a rehearsal as you can before you have to begin speaking. But this is actually counterproductive. In that moment, rehearsing your entire presentation only reinforces the sheer amount of information that you need to bring up within the next 2 minutes, which can only increase how daunting that task seems. Instead, what you want to do is take advantage of some of the rules that we illustrated in part 1 of this series, which is think about how your memory works, namely in association with your knowledge and experiences. In this case, we can take advantage of this by focusing instead on only the first 1 or 2 lines of your impromptu response or presentation. These are the lines that factor in the inciting incident and serve to open the floodgates for the rest of your presentation. By focusing on only these 1 or 2 lines, you have an opportunity to reinforce the beginning of your presentation, allowing for a strong opening, as well as laying down the groundwork for the rest of your presentation to follow by way of association with all the other information that you've collected surrounding those opening lines. The next step comes down to once you get up on that stage itself. Now, you need to begin responding. In that moment, we like to start as quickly as possible. I get it. This is an uncomfortable situation, and you want to get through it as fast as you possibly can. What that generally leads to is people stumbling over the beginning of their presentation, which makes them feel nervous and only sets them up for failure in the rest of the presentation. Instead, take a moment. Even in the case where you've been asked a question, people rarely expect you to respond instantly, running on the tail end of their own sentence. Instead, what they expect is a moment's pause, consideration, and then response. You only have a few seconds to do this, considering you've already taken the time to put together the rest of your information and presentation before now. But here, what you want to do is start by taking a deep breath from your diaphragm. Taking that deep breath in and release allows you to relieve some of the tension that you're feeling in an impromptu scenario. It also slows down your heart rate and relaxes you to allow you to take in information and respond to information more effectively. At the same time, focus on relaxing your shoulders. Whenever we feel tension, it gathers visibly in our body, which damages our credibility in the eyes of our audience. Moreover, it tightens our entire body up, changing the sound of our voice and making us feel and seem more nervous in their eyes. So take that moment and relax your shoulders before you begin. Now you're actually performing the presentation. You're in the midst of it. Generally speaking, we speak about 3 to 5 times faster than we actually think we're speaking within our mind. Whenever you're in a presentation scenario, whenever you're in conversation, especially when you're responding to someone's question, you always speak faster than you think you're speaking in your head. To counter this, what I want you to focus on is your enunciation. Focus on how you say each word, and more specifically, focus on the space between words. What you do not want are your sentences running on top of each other and having you stumble and stagger through your presentation. By focusing on your emphasis on each word, by focusing on the space between words and the enunciation that you're using, you have an opportunity to make sure that your presentation comes out not only clear, but also measured in terms of the speed that you are using to illustrate your information and articulate your presentation. Now, the impromptu, again, is one of the most challenging forms of presentation. It's one of the most feared forms of presentation, but it's also one of the most applicable forms of presentation. It can apply through conversation to presentation, through Q&A sessions and your interpersonal communications. And if you manage to master the impromptu, you have an opportunity to master every other form of presentation, because once you train yourself in a world where you have no preparation, preparation becomes a luxury that you can afford, not a crutch that you will need.